You're recording? Do you have that clacker by you?
Yeah, I did.
Alright, when you get it. Alright, I'm gonna bust my battery life halfway. Alright, let's take it home. Where we
Yeah.
at? Up to opportunists or
Yeah.
entrepreneurs? Who's behind this? Give me a clap when you get a chance, and then just take it off. Was it on the desk the whole time? Or?
Yeah, it's on the floor.
Alright.
Third go around.
Heard it happen. Alright. Opportunists or entrepreneurs? Who's behind this? How did this happen, and what is the purpose? Or was it just a lucky accident? Feel good?
Being born in 1956, those were the years where the people such as Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Wozniak, these is the same. I gotta do it again. Sorry.
Hold on. Put my headphones in while I have the opportunity. There, from the top.
Being born in the mid 50s, I share a generation with people like Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Larry Ellison. These are the people who made this new generation of interactive products. These are the people who foresaw the future. I always admired them. Prior to the books I've currently written, I had on deck a book called American Icon. It was the story of Steve Jobs. Not the stories that we always know about in the bio and the biographies and these things, but it was kind of talking about what made him what he is. Many people may not know that he was adopted. His father was a Syrian refugee. There's a big story. I'm not going to go into it now. Anybody can find that anywhere. The interesting part was that they were born in this age of innovation. And the question becomes, were they actually truly entrepreneurs? Were they merely opportunists? Were they both? Now, Woz is different. Wozniak truly appears to be a real humanist, whereas Jobs, Gates, Ellison, this crew appears to be more of an opportunist. Numerous times, Jobs, as I've said before, used the word seduce. He saw the opportunity. Did he see it in the sense of how far down the road it would go? My belief is yeah. My belief is his early days of eWorld, where Apple got into the internet space, the social media platform, years before it became popular. I think he knew what was coming. He was always a visionary. Everybody hates that word with him, but he was absolutely brilliant. Gates as well, but Gates kind of followed Jobs' lead. We all know that. But these two, this Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla kind of quality back and forth, the AC-DC fight. Yes, they were entrepreneurs. They saw the future. They knew where their place was in it. But they took that opportunity to build what we now know today as just giants in this space. Apple's cash reserves are higher than our entire country's cash reserves. And they're expected to hit 1 trillion after iPhone X comes out. They have $1 trillion in cash reserve. One company, started by 2 guys. It's amazing. Did they see the opportunities? Yes. Did they take that opportunity to devise products that would empty the normal person's bank account? Yes. So were they con men? Maybe. But they did catapult this space forward. And there's no reason that there should be any kind of hatred about what they've done. It's how we've used it, how we've taken this iPhone, this internet connection, and maybe not used it for everything it was possible to be used. We truly became capitalists. One of the great memes that I had reposted, and a friend of mine said that this is absolutely true. This generation has a device in their hands which enables them to see the collective knowledge of every other generation. And 90% of the time they use it for cat videos or rainbow vomit on Snapchat. So if you're going to discuss who the evil force here was, you have to rethink that and see who is the opportunist, who's the entrepreneur, who is the one misusing this. It's provided for you. The world's libraries are available, statistics, facts, books, publishing, everything you could think of. How is this generation using it, or were they kind of forced to use it only to buy as opposed to learn? And that's one of the real questions in this whole perception of veal. Veal, the animal, is stuck in that cage. Veal, the human, is really a little bit more free range than the animal version. Let's see where we are.
Do you think that, just to piggyback on this, jump off script real quick,
Good.
do you think that the human veal is really free range, or
That's
is
the next part.
is the human cage themselves?
They are caged themselves, but with this device, you have the ability to break out of that cage, and you're not using it.
Is that
So
because
that's
you're?
the pressure of the herd.
Is that the okay?
Let me go back. Let me start with that a little bit.
Okay, and then you want to? Right, let's just do that. We'll go from there.
Okay, and the killer app, right? They do tie together. Let me tie them together. You'll see.
That time.
Okay? The term I just used, human veal versus veal the animal. Veal the animal being caged. They're caged by the rancher. They're caged by the person wanting to chop them up and sell them, and that's what happens. Sorry. The human veal that I use the analogy towards, the question is, are they really free range? Do they have the ability to just break out and do what they want? They do. They can. The pressure of the herd and the herd mentality keeps them in that space. So there's kind of an invisible cage wrapped around them. The point I like to try and make is to make that transition from cage to free takes a tool. And you do have that tool. You can publish, you can write, you can take pictures, you can make movies, you can build sites, apps, games. You can do anything you want to break out of the cage, to go forward. But they choose to stay in it because they want to be part of this herd. And that to me comes from the factor that they didn't get the nurturing they needed early on in life. The term killer app comes up with any new computer device. The only reason the personal computer became in the home was the killer app of word processing. The kids could write their papers, parents could do their finances, they could bring home work. So that Microsoft Office-like suite of Lotus Notes or whatever it was made the killer app. Now, as you move down the progression into the industry of desktop publishing, electronic publishing, graphics, music, the killer apps were things like Photoshop, Illustrator, Logic, Pro Tools. That's what made the move from home computer fun around the house to accepted industry standard to required skill set. The killer app for the internet are these kids. They're the missing piece. They're the piece that made this 100% worthwhile to get invested in. The reason why Zuckerberg put up Facebook, one of the reasons, is that he said he wants to replicate the college experience online. And that's a tremendous feat. But without those college kids looking at it online, that would have been just another great idea that never came through. like any part of technology, without that main component, the killer app, the application of this hardware, it never would have went anywhere. So these young people and their involvement and their absorption and these multiple pieces coming together of the double income necessity, the out-of-house daycare, the needing to communicate with friends that they maybe saw at daycare that they can't get to because the parents are too tired to drive them, the arranging the play dates. This device that allowed them to communicate with friends that they wanted to speak to was the killer app, this Desire. You pull all of these pieces together and you truly have the perfect consumer or consumable that made this platform truly work. Good answer? That's
Like-
pretty good. Yeah, I tied it back together.
Killer app. Expansion becomes the killer. We did that.
Yeah, the product.
Talk about stimulating the herd in reference to veal theory. And then what is the product time on screen? Sorry, markets.
Hold on.
No, you're good. Your number time.
Shit. For any marketplace to exist, for any economy to exist, yes, there has to be a consumer, but there has to be some form of monetary exchange. There has to be some form of currency. And the question comes up in the valuations of these currencies, in these new platforms. What is their currency? The currency is time on a screen, eyeballs. A user opposite that computer screen, interacting, spending their valuable time, that is what creates the currency. Many times in class I talk to students about social commerce, and they always look at me like, what is social commerce? Social commerce is the amount of time and the amount of eyeballs that are on a platform. The more users, the higher the valuation. The more time those users buy anything on that platform, that valuation goes up. If you want to look at the equation of valuation, all you have to do is look at the user base times the typical amount of money generated, whether it's in advertising dollars or actually purchased items or analytics that come out of the back end. You times those two numbers and the equal is the valuation of the company. Now, one of the people I tremendously respect is Thomas Friedman. He's gotten a little full of himself, and if I was Thomas Friedman, I'd be 10 times worse. His wonderful books, The World is Flat, talking about how these series of 10 flatteners have taken the world and made it a direct line. They're brilliant. I don't have to tell anyone that. I certainly don't have to tell him that. The thing I love about him is the way he takes it, digests it, and puts out the next book. And the next book's title is Thank You for Being Late. About how, for some godforsaken reason, these devices that were meant to save us time have done nothing but eat up all of our time. And that's what I'm saying to you as the currency. Time on a screen, eyeballs, that's the currency. And these young people are so absorbed, so incredibly absorbed with walking around, and I call it, because Jim Carrey of all people called it this, the zombie apocalypse. They walk around staring into their phone. Sometimes, obviously, you've seen the videos, maybe true, maybe not, of walking into walls, off curbs, into puddles, off docks, whatever it is. But that time right here is everything to them. And that's the currency. And Friedman's title of, first of all, The World is Flat is brilliant. And secondly, Thank You for Being Late. Trying to make sure they prioritize life. Now, the other word that's thrown around today insanely is mindfulness. I'm too mindful. Friends of mine tell me, does your brain ever shut down? Did you not ever notice something? I had someone yell at me once, who's a friend of mine, that said, I have to make sure I watch out what I tell you, because you forget nothing. You are aware of everything. They call it hyper-observant. It's pattern recognition, unfortunately. That's one of the things I got. But seeing what I see on a daily basis and the patterns I see, I'm going to start hanging out with Temple Grandin. It's amazing the amount of currency passing through these little devices today.
Good old Tim.
I got to get more sugar.
Do you want to do it now or you want to keep going?
No, I'm just joking.
Screen time, eyeballs, I got that.
Physical and mental effects.
Where are we at? What page?
107.
Um,
92, excuse me.
Oh, did that? Yeah. What is the physical? Yep. What is the physical mental effects of too much screen time on a young child?
Okay. In putting together the research for this study with Veal, breeding a new consumer class, I talked to a few friends of mine who are psychologists, who are therapists as well. And the discussion went into the amount of time this generation is spending on screen and the effects. And neurotransmitters come into play in the brain, obviously. The factor of never having to really look something up. This concept of not holding on to facts and accruing a knowledge base because their mentality is, I'll just look it up again. I want to feel that mentality comes out of being born into a generation where they're in a candy store and the supply of candy never ends. It's like a really evil Willy Wonka. Not that he wasn't, but a really evil Willy Wonka. Every time you take a Wonka bar, another one pops in. You don't have to worry if it's going to be there tomorrow. So the concept of worry, did I retain that fact? There's no consequence. If I didn't work as hard at soccer, after school activities, I'm still going to get a trophy. If I go to look something up and I forget it, I'll just look it up again when you ask me. The problem with that is stored memory, referring to memory, learning how to memorize and hold on to it, not as total educational structure, but understanding linkages between different memories does help the brain form and does create a behavior that helps you separate knowledge. I would imagine there has to be some form of physiological structure going on. Anytime you use the brain to do something, you create neurotransmitters, you create synapses, you create a form of memory, a muscle memory, a body memory, and that has to build some kind of cognitive thought. Without that, I believe we're becoming more and more just responsive and not structural. And Veal, by nature, have no life outside of that cage and the next food and the next meal and the next bottle of whatever it is, milk or cream. So that's why, again, the analogy works so well. Because they're not thinking about tomorrow. Because tomorrow, if I need that fact, I'll just hit it up on Google again. So there's no concept of storing that knowledge base, referring to it, and that's how you develop critical thinking. And that's one of the major problems to me with this whole entire process.
All right.
Well, okay, hold on. I don't want to do, hold on, I don't want to do 108 right now. Okay. I'm going to cut it and I'm going to push it. I'm going to push it in between 119 and 120. Okay, just so you know.
So we're doing
I don't know why I wrote that in the book. I think I was just trying to reiterate the problems that are possible. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. Right? The evilness of it. You get my point?
Yep.
And it was in a bad spot. So.
So we're going to describe the detail. Sold off pieces part of the
Yeah,
deal
hold
theory.
on one second. Let's do that.
You good?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Getting there.
Oh,
Triple digits now.
right here. You know what I'm talking about? Like this. In the immortal words of the Little Rascals, we's freewheeling now, Spanky.
Right.
Okay.
Describe in detail the sold off in pieces part of the veal theory.
Overall, the veal theory has been born, separated from the herd, brought to a small space, stimulated in a desirable fashion, and then once at prime, sold off in pieces to be consumed or to consume. And the sold off in pieces place gets people really nervous. I think it gives this image of chopping up children. And that's horrible, it really is. But what I'm talking about is chopping up their minds and kind of their souls as well. When you spend time on a computer, when you spend time on a social network, when you spend time on your phone,